Welcome back. In the recent 2 years or so in the Sims 2 community, playing this game on Linux has been a hot topic, especially in terms of the game performance. Thankfully, we've received video and text guides for it, so today I'm doing a similar thing but with The Sims 3. I've been playing this way for about 1 year and 6 months at this point. It runs pretty well despite it being known to be a laggy mess. My plan for this video is to give you an introduction to the system, explain you the basics in terms of the game performance from the Linux perspective. Since there's a lot of resources about configuring your game, it won't be a main topic. Remember, Linux is free, so that's a great way to save some money if you're planning on buying a new PC, even if it's for playing just one game. Before we start, I'd like to talk about the tech requirements for those who might consider upgrading PCs. The amount of RAM in our case is unimportant, since I'm talking about the 32-bit game that won't go over 4 gigs. I'm gonna assume you've got 8 at the bare minimum. It's good to have an SSD drive, and I'm mentioning it just in case some viewers don't know. CPU doesn't matter anymore since the Origin version has been patched in early 2025. For Steam, I think AMD is still better, and Linux doesn't care. At last, GPU. That's the most complicated thing to explain. To put it short, if you have an Radeon, you're in, as the drivers are open source and there's no problem here. Nvidia case is more complicated and personally I don't use it. There's a lot of issues with their drivers. For a long time they were closed source and you had to be careful when choosing your distro. So if you're planning on using Linux on Nvidia, I recommend looking for those who offer a separate Nvidia support. Pros and cons of playing Sims 3 on Linux. It's free, unlike Sims 4 CC. Customability. What I mean, you can change it to however it is to suit your workflow. The possibilities are limitless. You won't get any ads or unnecessary bloat. You install what do you want to use. Viruses are harder to get, when technically you can get infected, but in practical situation it's very hard. You don't even have to install an antivirus. DXVK, which can be used to enhance your performance, is configured for you and installed by default. And the last, for The Sims 2, it's hard to get a pink soup. The cons are, you have to know how to Google stuff and solve your problems. Of course, there are forums that will help you, but don't act like a Sims 4 player after EA update breaks their game. Programs such as MS Office, Adobe stuff, and multiplayer games with anti-cheat won't work. There's less resources that would help you with stuff, as it's less common. And at last, if Windows and macOS were parents, they would be that overprotective type. With Linux you can do a lot and the system might not stop you from doing so. Look for infamous RMRF meme. Now that I assume you haven't installed Linux yet, I compiled a quick tier list for you to help you with the choice. First off, we have Bazite. This one is hard to destroy and created with gaming in mind, based on Fedora. A good choice if you want to mostly play and you're tech illiterate and use Nvidia. The second one is Fedora. Frequent updates, very popular, so it's easier to get help. You can't go wrong with it. If you're scared to use your PC, download Silver Blue version. PKOS is new and unpopular, but it's based on Debian and uses the best kernel in the game, so it's, in my opinion, also a good choice. OpenSUSE is a bit tricky. It uses less popular package manager, and its most popular flavor is rolling, which means each update frequency. They use their settings to keep the stability, so it's not that scary. You can consider this one. Nobara is an easy setup, extremely beginning friendly, and it's good, but it's mostly for gaming. I wouldn't use it for other tasks. The big disadvantage is that it's more on the niche side and updates slow, since it's maintained by a small team, and has a separate Nvidia version. Pop OS, from what I know, might be a decent choice even if it's Ubuntu based. I heard this one also offers decent Nvidia support. Arch triplets are great, but not for beginners. Frequent updates. You have to know the basic terminology to know what do you want. Oh, and if you run average Sims 4 player, avoid them at all cost. My least favorite spice. Not a tragedy if you choose this, but keep in mind it's not really catered towards gaming. Updates happen less often and it's marketed as that easy one, based on Ubuntu, which is so but without the annoying parts. Gentoo is the worst first Linux choice you can make, trust me. NixOS is on the advanced side as well. I don't know much about that one. I recognize Zorin, but I don't know with this one. It's basically one of these dozens, but it's easy user-friendly terminal free, so I don't recommend. Mangohud is arguably the worst of them all. The only user I can think of is if you play The Sims 2 in Excel and your name ends with Y. Then it's second only to Gentoo. Ubuntu is the most popular, but there are better ones offering what this one does. Look like Fedora, OpenSUSE. Also it tends to know better than you and I'm clueless about how it works. Garuda is the weird one because it's made for gaming, but I don't really see the point of this one. What does it offer what the rest of Arch family doesn't? Not knowledgeable about Debian and Void, but it's probably on the advanced side as well. Now it's time to download. To create a bootable drive, I recommend using Ventoy. Why? Because my pen drive is a bit too big to waste it on one ISO file. I'm gonna assume you're in Windows right now and you'll download that version. Then you have to go to search for a right distro on their official site. Look for download button. There comes the explanation what you should download. Some things you will have to decide now, some later. It depends. First choice you might make is the type of device you're using. I think most of you here are going with PCs. Second choice might be about your graphics card. As I've said before, if you're using Nvidia, you might look for a separate version that supports it. The next choice is the desktop environment. Sometimes you have to make the choice before the download, sometimes you have to choose during installation. It's mostly about the look of your system and the choice here is yours. Personally, I've got screenshot baited towards GNOME, but I was told in a YouTube video to go for a KDE. I chose it and I love it. You can make this one however you want to. Look. And the last choice might occur if you decided to go for Fedora. You might find a atomic, immutable version, and to explain it quickly, it means that you can't delete the system files and some different update rules apply to prevent a potential data loss. You might choose this one if you want to feel safer. After you download, you have to unpack your Ventoy folder and enter Ventoy Plugson. Select your pen drive and click Start. When the program is done, just put your ISO files here. You don't have to do anything more than that. You can put more than one image there. Here, for example, I have two ISOs. Third, what do you install? You don't have to install everything on the list, but unless you know what those apps do, you can skip that part. In most cases, you'll get a graphical installer. You follow the instructions up until the disk management, to showcase you all the decisions you're going to make. First of all, if you have Windows installed, do not use that disk on Linux and vice versa. because it uses a different file system and it's gonna conflict and possibly corrupt your data. It's not an issue. Same thing goes for sharing other disks within the two systems. And second of all, if you want to use Windows on that computer, I suggest installing it first, as the Windows updates might mess up your system and boot management. Now let's go to the disk setup. In my opinion, the best setup would be, first of all, partition boot AFI. Less than 1 gig, without it nothing will run. File system is FAT33, sometimes it can be ext4. Slash partition is for system files. This one can be 150, it depends on the distro, because that's where you'll be getting your packages such as GIMP, Lutris, Firefox, etc. Partition home is for your private files to avoid the need of reinstalling everything. It's gonna include your games, photos, screenshots, save files, etc. And fourth, partition swap. To explain it quickly, I would say it's like a additional RAM source, which, in a shortcut of course, which can be useful when you're using hibernation a lot. And when it comes to the swap partition, you can use ZRAM instead if you know how to do it. And the size of that partition should be around your RAM amount. The last thing to discuss is the file system, and I personally stick with BTRFS. It gives me a snapshot integration, works fine, and it results with a system that's hard to break. I can roll back if I want to. If something's not right with the partitioning, the installer will let you know what you should change. Here you can take a look at my partitioning. You know the rules, time to wait. You can drink coffee, rise up your system, or eat a meal. You've entered your fresh install. What to do next? Your fresh installation might give you a hello window to help you with installing the important packages. The list depends on your distro. Some might come with the necessary programs pre-installed, others will give you a ready-to-go compilation and include them on their list. You can choose to install the gaming packages that way, but I'm going to skip that part to show you the common methods. First way to install packages is universal for everyone, but you have to know the name of the package manager your system of choice uses. Don't be scared of the terminal. It's not an advanced hacking tool, and it can be quite handy to do stuff with the use of it. The three most popular ones are apt, DNF, and pacman. There are many more, but to not overcomplicate things, you will most likely use one of the first two. To install an application, you need to enter the terminal app, but not copy the exact command I'm typing. You need to write sudo, name of your package manager, install and the app name. If you want to install more than one app at once, you can do space and type the name of the next application. And here's a quick note. I gave you an example from pacman, and that's why I used -s. Every other package manager will use install. And second of all, if you type in the wrong command, terminal should catch it and nothing bad will happen. As you can see, I typed DNF when I use pacman and it just say it doesn't know what it is. Type your password to confirm. You will get the list of things you will install. Why it installs more than you typed in? It's because the app needs to get dependencies that are not installed yet, and there is nothing wrong with that. You have to confirm and wait. I recommend installing applications this way because you know what do you install, you get informed what dependencies do you get, and it works for everyone, except for Ubuntu, since I know they might give you a snap even if you ask for a PT version. The second way to install a package might be more beginner friendly, and it can be only used when you have apt or DNF. You can use an app such as Discover or PopShop, for example, which are similar to like Google Play or whatever, but for free. I personally don't use them, so that's why I'm not going to explain them. This way might feel safer for people who are not familiar with the terminal yet, but it doesn't work with every system. Those apps are designed for people who are not using more advanced distros. If you choose this way to install a package, you might stack up on Flatpaks or snaps if you're using Ubuntu. They are a specific type which takes more space since it downloads everything it needs for itself to work. They are safer than native packages, but updates are rarer. They aren't allowed to do as much as those. So for example, you might not be able to use extensions. Some options might be blocked. For loot trees, I recommend going with the native version, aka not Flatpak, since you might be interested in using Gamemode, Mangohud, etc. If you're gonna use Steam, in the case of Steam, you can use both, as Valve is involved in development of the Flatpak version. To play The Sims 3, you need to install Lutris for Origin version or Steam for their version. Next package you might need is Mangohud with Goverlay, which I use to check on the game. You can also use Gamemode to speed up the game performance. Gamescope is not a must-have, but it's a tool developed by Valve. If you're having some issues with the game, you can always try it. It allows for borderless gaming and you have to enter the resolution the game should run it. It scales the launcher as well. Fifth app can be used to install ProtonDB for the Steam version. Proton is one of the compatibility layers used with Steam games that have no native version. The remaining packages are Fast Fetch if you'd like to show your PC config. If you want to extract any archives you download the graphical way, you can download Arc or File Roller. When you enter Lutris for the first time, in the left bottom corner you will get information about installing stuff. Let it happen. Go to the Preferences, Runners, Wine, Manage Wine Versions. Here you can download the modified version of it. It's not necessary since this version hasn't been updated in a while. I'm not going into details. You can enter the Settings tab to adjust the setting for all of the non-Steam games. You can change here your wine version and remember to not select Proton, it won't work. Graphics tab should be untouched, DXVK is necessary, and the last one is probably for older games. With the next 5 you probably might disable anti-cheats. Sims 3 is not a multiplayer game. In environmental variables, you do the same thing you would do in launch options on Steam. You might try things with this one I typed in. The second tab in the Lutris tab. You can change the settings if the game won't run for you. I like to turn on the FPS counter. If you disable the screensaver, you won't take screenshots using Spectacle. If you have Gamemode package installed, I recommend turning it on. Don't type the game performance, I'm the exception from the rule. You can also enter the settings here. To install the game, you click the plus in the left up corner and you get 5 options. Option number 1 is used mostly for free games. It used to have The Sims 2 until EA intervened with the Legacy collection. The second option is when you have the exe file to install. The option 5th can be used if you have the game installed already. I mean like it's already downloaded and you have the exe file. This option is used to run other external applications such as CC Magic, SimPE, etc. I'm gonna tell you that EA app on Linux sucks. It often wouldn't launch for me, it's slower than the usual. That's why I'm not sure if I'm able to show the next part of this guide. You can find help on GitHub, that's how much I despise it. After you install from the instruction and login, you can download the game from there. After everything downloads, go back and add a locally installed game. If you type in the name, and here it will automatically give you the thumbnail. Choose Wine. In game options, you have to find your executable file. It should be in Home, Games, Origin, Origin Apps, Sims 3, Bin. Now you have to enter the wine prefix. The default one should be home, username wine. If you don't see it, check if you can see the hidden files. Integrate system files means that your CC folder will be in home documents like it would be in Windows. Runner options. You can adjust for each game individually. Use system wine tricks can be turned on and off if the game is not working. The graphics section should stay untouched. Remember that without DXVK the game won't run. In the next section I personally turn off the anti-cheat as it's not a multiplayer game and it's unnecessary. I admit I've never used the virtual desktop and DPI. Take a look at the DLL overrides. Right now I have version.dll that lets me to not use EA app. WinNet will be necessary after we'll get to the smooth patch, as it's the ASI loader. D3D and D3D9 are required for ReShade to work properly. In System Options tab I use Mangohud. Gamescope can be used if you want to, it's in the 6th point of this guide. The description is mysterious and I'm unable to translate it into a more understandable language. The last thing you can enable is the game mode. Here I've disabled it as for me it works a bit differently. I'm showing you the Proton Plus first, so you can go and grab a Proton fork, either Kachi or GE, both are good. This thing is another translation layer but for Steam made by Valve. Now to the Steam version. At first, when you launch Steam, you won't see all of the games you own on the list. That's because at default it shows only games with native Linux version. To change that, you have to go to Steam settings and in the Compatibility tab select Enable Steam Play for all other titles. Then in Run Other Games With, select the latest Proton version. Restart Steam and you'll be able to download. I don't have Sims 3 on Steam, so The Witcher will be the example as it doesn't have Linux version as well. You will find the default installation of your game in Home Games. After you enter the folder, you will find the resemblance of the Windows file structure. So from Drive C you go to Program Files, Origin Games and the folder is there. To access the saves and CC, you can either go to user's your name or find it in Home Documents if you selected the option in Luchis. If you're on Steam, right-click on the game and browse local files and you'll get the bin folder. Go to Steam Apps, Compat Data, one of the numbered folders will have your documents. The next thing to establish is finding those files if you'll have to use the Wine File Explorer. It might happen if you use, for example, some external apps. First way to access is to find desktop/home username games. Second way is to find a drive that's not C, go to home user games. The last way is to go to C, program files, origin games, TS3 if you're exploring the right prefix. When launching Wine for the first time you should get a pop-up to install Mangohud, which you should do. Without it, it won't work. At last you have to enter the app named Wine Tricks. Select the default prefix and install DLLs. Select .NET 45 and VCRAN 2019. Those work for me, I don't go for the latest as I've set up Windows 7. It will install and don't be scared of the warnings, it's normal. The last part I forgot to add. If you're on Steam version with Intel, you still have to apply the patch. Download it. Enter the Proton tricks. Again, you need to find your game on the list. Select default prefix and install an arbitrary executable. Select your file and you're ready to go. After you've downloaded the patch installer, to use it in the proper way, you're supposed to add it in LazyDuchess as a locally installed game. Remember to add your .wine folder. Launch it. The dirty way to do that is just by running the exe from the folder. It works the same way as on Windows. Except I don't have the game here, so it's an error. Now that I'm on the topic, I didn't know there's a tool to match the graphic card. The same thing goes for it. I don't use it, so I'm skipping it and I'll just do it in the notepad. At last, add the launch option on Steam. WineDLL overrides equals Intel fix equals NB. Smooth patch doesn't work out of the box on Linux. I found many questions about it, but the answer is only for the Steam version. Not only that, but in the guide person recommended adding the Sims 3 to the Steam library, which may not work as Proton is intended for the Steam games. Download the file as usual and locate it. You can unpack the file the Windows way with the use of ARC or File Roller. My preferred method is by using the terminal. I start by setting the location to the downloads folder, then I type in unzip and at last I delete the archive. Paste all of the files like you would on Windows and edit the text file. Settings depend on whether or not you're using Gamescope. Without it, FPS limit I leave unchanged and I managed it with Mangohud. Enable borderless. With it, I set up the FPS limit and disable the borderless mode. For the first launch, set debug for 1, so we can see if it works. In LazyDuchess, you have to go to the configure and in DLL overrides, type in the name of the DLL file you downloaded, set to NB. In the Steam version, you have to type in the following command, WineDLL overrides equals quotation mark winnet equals NB quotation mark and end with %. Enter the game. You should get this pop-up to see if it's working. Smooth patch has been applied. To be sure, we can disable the full screen and it's still there. You can download a launcher replacement. For the origin version, I recommend using the one made by LazyDuchess. Same thing as with the smooth patch. Move these two files into the bin folder and Linux won't oppose you. As you can tell, it's working. I can demonstrate it by disabling the packs. Now let's see if a custom word would install. It's glitchy at times, but it worked. To prove it's in, look at my DC backup folder. If you've done the smooth patch, the other ASI mods will work too. The first one that's mostly compatible with the Steam version but can be used with a traditional one is the stutter reducer and Sims 3 setting setter. To find the menu in-game, press insert and there's ReShade like panel. If you just want to improve the game, you can download and load the prepared config file. I recommend setting up the memory warning, which is supposed to warn you if your game is close to the RAM cap. Here's the warning. In the patches tab you can get the improvements that work with the Steam version related to the loading. This program can also be used to change the settings in the game files. For example, I can have a 3K and 4K preset and change them if I want to. Gamescope. When to use Gamescope? Weird glitches going on, issues with running the game, UI scaling, to improve the game performance, and borderless gaming. For the settings, you have to enter LazyDuchess, get the last tab, and FSR scaling is, if you're playing with the UI scaling, you might have to use this one. 20 is the minimum anti-aliasing, 0 is the maximum. At 10 is medium, as I'm relying on ReShade for it. Output and game resolution are the resolutions I want to play on, the one my monitor uses. In custom settings I have -F for the borderless mode working for me and --Mango-App for the FPS counter. DXVK is one of the fundamentals for your game to work on Linux. If you're playing on Windows, you can use it as well, but it requires you to read the guide I included in the description. I recommend downloading the dxvk.conf file and put it in your game folder made by Datsujin. Remember to not delete dxvk.cache. In this file, you can change the texture memory to 1, sync interval and present interval to 1. After you've done the changes, go to loot trees and in the environmental variables put dxvk config file. In value put the location of it. For the Steam version, you can do the similar thing. In the launch options type in dxvk config file equals location. You should run your game and exit to generate your folder. Same as with Windows, you should have a device config file which will be helpful for setting up the game. As you can see, the game thinks you're using Windows. You can keep it open if you need it. Back to the bin folder. Open default.ini. Here you should change 5 values related to the cache file size. This number is around 2 gigs. In the graphics cards, you need to add another line that says card 0x chipset device from the device config file. In quotation mark put the name of your card. I put it as the first line under ATI. If you're on Nvidia or Intel, you need to search for your section. The third file to modify is sims3.ini. Here you can change the memory usage limit. Usually it's recommended to write half of your RAM, even if it won't work like that and you'll never force your game to use it all. In this file you can experiment with the config section to improve the routing. Be careful and keep a copy of that file somewhere. The last file is the graphics rules. First change is in the set type texture memory. Set it to half of your card's memory. Next, set CPU level to 3 and all of those 3. The next section is to fully match the GPU with the game. Going by the number, for me it's 0, which means I should tap in the ATI section over card level low. In the quotation marks put something like this when the last 2 numbers are replaced with the exclamation points. I tried to explain it as much as I could, but if you're still confused, check out the most popular guide by Akatonsak, she explains it better than me. The next section is about changing your textures. Assuming you're playing your game on very high, scroll down to the very high. You can change the values of rendered sim texture sizes and CAS render target. You're supposed to type in megabytes how much do you want. With the first one you shouldn't go overboard, unless you're here just to take photos. Otherwise your game performance may tank and the results won't be worth it. Change the first 2 numbers for either. For CAS it's safer to do 4K. Normal setup is 2048. You can change it to 2560, 3072 or 4096. The last thing you can change is the value of the memcache budget value. You can try to change it to 1 or 2 gigs. If you set it to -1, it's technically an unlimited amount, but you have to be careful and maybe monitor your VRAM usage before changing it. I've set mine to 8 gigs. I recommend setting up Mangohud as another way to monitor your game's behavior. Right now I've entered the Go overlay to show you how I've configured it. You can make it look how do you want to, with the cube in the right showing you how it looks. Bottom right position, so it doesn't sit over notifications. I've set up to show FPS and here you can select the limit for your games if you're not using Gamescope. You can check multiple boxes and see which one works best by pressing Shift L F1 on default. Usually it's recommended to not go over your screen refresh rate. I'm telling you to experiment as I've seen report that for some it runs better on 30 frames. In the metrics tab, I'm clicking to display RAM so it makes controlling the game easier. Here's how it looks for me. ReShade. The Sims 3 from my experience is picky when it comes to the version of ReShade. I used to use 4.9.1, now I installed it and it didn't work as the game would not recognize it. I installed 5.2.1 and everything's fine. ReShade is the type of a program that it's hard to get rid of once you start using it, so I've decided to include this one in case someone wants to use it. I've done a quick guide about the legacy collection for The Sims 2 and it's very similar for free. On Linux, installing ReShade for your game is very easy if you're going to install the unmodded version. You have to go to that GitHub page and paste 2 first comments into your terminal to download the script. Remember, to paste things into the terminal you have to press Ctrl, Shift and V. The next step is to type ReShade_version equals. ReShade version will install the chosen version of this program. When it comes to the version choice, there's 2 factors determining your choice. Version that works with your game well, and version your preset of choice was made on. The next thing is global_ini equals 0. It will make a separate configuration file. You don't have to use it, but I'm doing it with more games so I have to separate them. Otherwise I would use the same configuration for every game. Paste the location of your game's exe file. This script is usually smart and chooses the right configuration for you. It should be like DX9 32 bits. Personally, I've never used GShade, but if you'd like to install it, there's a link in the description with an installation script. You will install it the same way as the ReShade. When it comes to installing the modded version, the case might be a little bit more complicated as the script doesn't work with those. You might use them if you work with EA version and those won't work because of the internet connection. When you download it, you can go to LazyDuchess, choose TS3 and install an exe in the prefix. Find your game and be careful, you have to choose DX9. If you play on Linux, Vulkan won't work. The last part of my guide is dedicated to the game crashes, as it's the thing I've encountered the most while playing. I recognize 4 types of this game crashing. First of them is a natural crash. It happens after 1 or 2 hours of gameplay or 2 save cycles. To minimize the damage, I use Mangohud. When the full usage gets around 10-11 gigs, I know it's time to be more careful. The store crash. This one happens when you use store objects. The game will crash before entering the main menu. It might happen when you enter the game without the store objects, but if DC backup thinking you have them installed. Mod conflict crash. It will happen during shorter gameplay time, unrelated to the playing time and RAM. From my experience, when it gets to the point the game might become unplayable and crash under shorter periods. The only way to solve this is the 50/50 your mods folder, find the conflicting ones and keep playing. It's not that hard to diagnose as the game starts crashing after entering the save. And fourth is ReShade crash. That type of crash is related to ReShade. Usually the case is wrong version of ReShade installed, wrong DLL chosen during installation, wrong shaders enabled. To fix this one, first workaround can be tuning on and off shaders from time to time. The second option is to try out different ReShade versions. As I've said before, the game from my experience doesn't react well to all of them. The last fix can be seeing if some of the shaders are the reason for the crashes. That's it for this guide. I told you how I get my game to run on Linux with most necessities. If you liked my explanation, please show the support so I'll make more guides like that in the near future by clicking the like button.